Annual speech from the Advanced Communications Manual, Speaking to Inform, project number 3. The objectives of this manual are to prepare a demonstration speech to clearly explain a process, product, or activity, and to conduct the demonstration as part of a speech delivered without notes. He is a dedicated Toastmaster that strongly believes what prisons need more of than anything else is programs that empower inmates to make positive changes in their lives. Time required for this speech, Mr. Timer, is 10 to 12 minutes. The title of the speech is Know What You're Up Against. Speaker's name is President James Sauerwein. I'm going to invoke Mr. James Sauerwein to the lectern for his speech.
Distinguished dignitaries, most welcome guests, and fellow Toastmasters. Timer, you have me down for 10 to 12 minutes.
Correct, sir.
Awesome. Basically, recently I read a book. It's titled Words That Work. And this book motivated me to come here tonight and deliver this speech. You see, the author explained why we, as communicators and leaders, are at an automatic deficit when it comes to making an impact with those we're trying to speak with. For example, have you ever wondered why some people are so much better than others at talking their way into a job or out of trouble? Have you ever wondered why some commercial jingles cut through the clutter of our crowded memories? Maybe, perhaps you've wondered what's behind a winning campaign slogan or a career-ending political blunder. And maybe most importantly, as it pertains to communicators and leaders, has anyone in here ever wondered why some speeches resonate and endure while others are forgotten moments after they are given? Well, one answer is that we live in an information age. And because of that, we are competing against a massive amount of other forms of communication that are vying for our listeners' attention. So we have to do everything we can to try to make it so that our words stick out amid all of these other things. Now, how can you do that? I will give you some tips tonight that will help you to do that and possibly make more of an impact the next time you give a speech. But before I get into that, because as you heard in his introduction, this is a demonstration speech, I'm going to do a demonstration to further illustrate my point that we are inundated with television advertising. So I need 3 volunteers from the audience. Mr. Lucier, Mr. Kraus, Mr. Keegan. Would you please come up to my left and stand?
Sorry, Scout.
As quickly as possible. We know how I like to chatter on.
Otter!
And Otter as well. Come up here. Maybe he can help us out. Let's first off give my volunteers a round of applause. Now with this demonstration, I'm going to show you how television advertising has ingrained itself into our brains. Mr. Keegan.
Yes, sir.
If we were talking about an automobile company and one of their vehicles, and I asked you to fill in the blank of this slogan, what would you put in the blank? Built blank tough.
Ford Tough.
Ford. See how easy it was for Mr. Keegan to fill in the blank with Ford? I thought he would get it wrong. I was hoping he would possibly get it wrong so we could knock him down a peg, but he's won this round. Let's move on to Mr. Kraus, and we're still talking about vehicles. What vehicle, if I wanted a vehicle that was like a rock, what vehicle am I talking about?
Chevy.
Chevy. Even Mr. Kraus is able to get it. So let's move on to something else I think is right up Mr. Lucier's alley. Let's talk about beer and the beer companies. Now, if I wanted a beer that is touted as the king of beers, what type of beer do I want, Mr. Budweiser? Budweiser. We have anybody that likes to drink Budweiser? Of course not. You guys have changed. Mr. Keegan, what beer company has the slogan, Tap the Rockies?
I believe that would be Coors, sir.
That is absolutely what it is. Well, then let's move on to restaurants. And I'll ask, Mr. Kraus. Now forgive me because I'm not very good at singing, so I'm not very good at imitating jingles. But what restaurant has the jingle, ba-da-ba-ba-ba?
McDonald's.
McDonald's. And I'll tell you what, if I never hear that slogan again, it'll be too soon. And Mr. Lucier, because we're just moving down the line here, what restaurant could I go to if I wanted to, quote, have it your way, unquote?
Burger King.
It is Burger King. Awesome. See, these guys are 6 for 6 right now. Let's move on to something else. Mr. Keegan, if we were talking about a cereal company, what brand of cereal has a mascot that says, "They're great"?
That would be Frosted Flakes, sir.
All right. It is Frosted Flakes. For extra credit, though, what's the mascot's name?
Tony the Tiger.
Tony the Tiger.
I knew that one, you didn't have to help.
I'll stump him on something a little harder here in a bit. Mr. Kraus, you can take our last question to round this off. What candy has the tagline, "Taste the Rainbow"?
Skittles.
Skittles. 8 for 8. They know these slogans. Now, if we ask them something important, they probably can't tell you what it is, but I guarantee you they can tell you these jingles, these slogans, these advertisements, because advertising companies have ingrained their slogans into their head. You guys may take a seat. Now let's give my brave volunteers another round of applause. As you can see, and this may not have been the hardest questions, I could have dug deeper, but advertising companies are working around the clock so that they make sure that their message, their jingle, their advertisement sticks in your heads long after that commercial is over. You may not know what Ford Automobile Company has to offer in their trucks and their cars, but you know that they're built Ford tough. And on top of that, why would you ever buy a mediocre beer when you can enjoy the king of beers? And if we're talking about restaurants, you might not know what Burger King has to offer on the menu, but you know you can walk in there and you can have it your way. So, the question becomes, how are we, as speakers, going to compete with the likes of Snap, Crackle, and Pop, and the quicker, thicker picker-upper? How are we going to compete? Well, the answer to this question is very easy. We are going to use the old adage, if you can't beat them, join them. And I have 4 tips that I think they're very simple to remember, and they're going to help you make an impact with your next speech. Number 1, as speakers, we need to remember not to use $50 words when $5 words will do. Never use language that is going to force your listener to grab for the dictionary, because they're not. They're going to let your words go right over their head, or worse yet, they are not going to understand what you're trying to say. So take some advice from Mr. Einstein. And he said, any idiot can make something complicated. It takes a genius to make it simple. Number 2, repetition, repetition, repetition. A good message or theme is like the Energizer Bunny. It keeps going and going and going. You get the picture. And put it this way. When you come in here and you give a speech, this is probably the first time your listeners are hearing you. So you have some leeway. You can beat home that message your entire speech. And if you do that, I guarantee you, they are going to remember it. And number 3, try to offer something new. And if you can't, take something old, recycle it, and deliver it in a way so that it at least appears fresh. I don't know about all of you, but I am easily bored. If something doesn't shock or awe me, I'm going to move on to something else. And as communicators, we do not want our listeners to move on to something else before we're finished speaking. And lastly, anytime you can, whenever it is, always try to speak aspirationally. I don't care if I'm coming in here and I'm going to give a speech on how to sew quilts or how to weave baskets. I'm going to get up here and I'm going to deliver it in a way so that it sounds aspirational. And maybe some of you have wondered why certain speeches tend to win the Best Speaker Award. I think it has something to do with the speaker speaking aspirationally to us. So keep that in mind. And what is one of the best ways to do it? Personalize and humanize your message so that it triggers an emotional remembrance in your audience. A wise person once told me when I first became a Toastmaster that people are going to forget your words, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Now, I don't have much time, and my timer could probably update me on how much time I have left. All right, then. So let me close. Let me close by saying this. Every single person in here, every single person has the potential to be a great communicator and leader. You simply have to know what you're up against. And here's what I recommend. Every time you give a speech, whenever it is, always put together a strategy. Something that's going to help you have an edge. Something that's going to help your message sink into the brain of your listeners. And also keep in mind some of the tips that I have brought up tonight. You don't have to dumb down your speech, but do keep in mind the acronym KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Communication is about communicating. So your main objective is to make sure that your audience understands exactly what you're saying. And feel free to beat home that message. Because a good message or theme is, to quote Maxwell House's slogan, good to the last drop. So feel free to use it over and over again. And remember, your audience is probably hearing it for the first time. And try to keep it fresh. It doesn't have to be brand new. It doesn't have to be original. It simply has to sound and feel like it is. And finally, because this is very important, always try to speak aspirationally. And the best way to do that is to personalize and humanize your message by wrapping it around stories and anecdotes. Because if you personalize and you humanize your message, your listener is going to feel it on a personal level. And personal communication is the best kind of communication. All you have to do is know what you're up against. Mr. Toastmaster.